The Empire's on the run. Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
We all know of the countless cases where young black men had drugs or guns planted on them by police. Now the tables have turned by former black police officer Jeffrey Walker from Daily Mail. A disgraced ex-police officer testifying against his drug squad colleagues acknowledged on Tuesday that he stole drug money, planted evidence, and lied on paperwork too many times to count. His victims, in his own words, were white college boy, khaki pants types who were easy to intimidate. Now that Mr. Walker is out of a job, maybe he should try his hand at the DEA. Apparently having wild sex parties and accepting gifts from drug dealers and working with the Sinaloa cartel is no big deal. DEA head Michelle Leonhardt said, "I can't fire, I can't recommend a penalty," when asked why she has not fired or revoked the security clearance of agents named in the March 2015 OIG report, which included an account of an agent hitting a prostitute in the face with a glass over a money dispute. So, Mr. Walker, you can probably get a job with the biggest drug dealers on earth and continue your disreputable ways. Rob Dew reporting for Infowars.com, Infowars Nightly News, and PrisonPlanet.tv.
Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139. Alex Jones here. For the last 2 years, I've been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to design a nutraceutical formulation that has truly life-changing health benefits. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. Visit InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139. That's InfoWarsLife.com. InfoWars Life and InfoWarsLife.com is extremely excited to announce our latest release, Winter Sun, a revolutionary type of vitamin D3. Winter Sun is a premium quality vitamin D3 nutritional supplement. It is produced by extracting oil from healthy, nutrient-dense plants known as lichens. Every batch is analyzed for purity and D3 content. It's completely free of toxins and allergens. Simply put, if you want the best at an extremely low price, this is it. Winter Sun is the result of our pursuit of the best source of vitamin D3. The research and development took over 2 years, but the result, as verified by independent laboratories, is the best vegan vitamin D3 product in the world. Read the facts at InfoWarsLife.com about Winter Sun Vitamin D3. Not only does vitamin D3 promote a healthy mood, but vitamin D supports our memory and brain function, something the globalists are targeting. Visit InfoWars.com today or call 888-253-3139.
Live from the Infowars.com studios, it's Alex Jones.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host today. We're talking to callers about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We've also got some callers on hold about vaccines. We were just talking to one gentleman, Tim. He did an excellent job, I thought, when we had the Paul Revere contest. And that's why it is very important to get the information out there. You can always have a big effect yourself if you put out some information, if you take video of what's going on in your community, if you put together a documentary like Tim did. It was called Blockheads. It's a great way to fill in some background as to what's going on with these trade agreements. Again, we're trying to consolidate the North American Union with Europe and with the Pacific countries in terms of, they say, a trade agreement. It is not a free trade agreement alone. It is not a good deal even for trade. It's managed trade, managed for the benefit of the multinational corporations that are negotiating this in secret. But it is a massive plan towards taking down our sovereignty. And if you don't understand what's going on at the border, then take a look at NAFTA. If you don't understand how we are losing our economic base, how we've lost 700,000 jobs, 61% of those in manufacturing, take a look at NAFTA. If you want to know why our deficit has been so large and growing for the last 20 some odd years that we've had NAFTA, then take a closer look at it. That is all going to be repeated, but even worse in the trade agreements that are being negotiated now that have been fast-tracked. So educate yourself about it, educate others about it, and let's talk to Stephen in New York about the trade agreement. Stephen, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Dave? Always good seeing you. I mean, always good hearing you. You have a great voice. You sound like you'd be on 10-10 win. But point is this. Wouldn't you say that between the trade agreement and between the real kingpins, that the real players that are making this happen, I just want to voice an analysis to you. Maybe you could tell me what you think. But wouldn't you say that this is really just a gigantic, if you were to look at this whole thing in a bird's eye view, it looks to me just like a gigantic hedge fund. Now, I know you're pretty business savvy, and you could somewhat understand that it's really like between Soros and between, all the real major players. It's really just maybe 1,000-man hedge fund, and that's pretty much what we're waging war against. I mean, you can say that it's the tyranny that we're up against, or it's whatever forces you want to call it. But the way I see it is, it's a hedge fund that we're up against. And I was just thinking, how do people bring down hedge funds? Maybe if we can look at it from another angle. I mean, don't get me wrong, your angle is always on point. I'm not saying to change your angle, but I was just thinking maybe looking at this as breaking down a hedge fund, and maybe that might give us some new answers in how we can counter this whole thing. Because it's really about counterattacks. I feel like we're talking about it, which is good. To a point, I feel like we're just, in a sewing circle, just, talking about it. No one's really countering them. You know what I mean? We obviously have no...
Well, I don't know what we do. I mean, part of it is education. I think we stopped the war in Syria when we educated people about it. And I think we basically didn't have to go to war with the ATF in this country because we educated people about what their gun control agenda is. And so now we see that by 2-to-1 margin, people are more interested in using the Second Amendment and seeing it as a means of protecting themselves than being afraid of it and embracing gun control because somehow if the government is the only one with guns, then we're going to be safe. So we won that argument through education. It's been done peacefully. And of course, how do we take down a syndicate like this that can control the markets? Because that's what the central bankers do. That's what the multinational corporations do. They can control the markets. And when you go back to the Federal Reserve when it was first put in place, you go back to some of the people who spoke against it. I think it was Charles Lindbergh's father, who was a senator or congressman at the time. And he said, what you're doing is you're putting in place a system where these people can control the markets. They will know precisely when they are going to make business conditions favorable or less favorable. They'll be able to time the market. They will be able to precipitate crashes. And of course, that's exactly what we have. And if we let this go through, we are going to be allowing these multinational corporations to be elevated to the position of being sovereign states, actually greater than sovereign states. They'll be able to go in an arbitration process, and they'll say, well, you just outlawed Monsanto's glyphosates, so Monsanto can sue you under this trade agreement for damages, and your taxpayers or your sovereign government will have to pay for it and go into debt to the bankers. I think, really, Stephen, the best thing we can do is try to get people to understand what this is about. Not only is it just about economics. There's a lot of people in the Democrat Party, their traditional constituents and unions who are complaining very loudly about this, but most of the people who are in the Republican Party see this as, falsely, I believe, as a free trade agreement. Now, I'm all for free markets, but this is not a free market. This is not a free market agreement. This is nothing of the sort. This is crony capitalism. And I think a lot of people in the Tea Party and elsewhere woke up to the idea that crony capitalism is not capitalism. Crony capitalism is not a free market. And they need to understand that these trade agreements that are being negotiated right now are very different animals than free trade agreements, and they're far more comprehensive than just trade. So I don't know, when you're talking about trying to take down a hedge fund, I'm really not sure what we would do along that line, but I think it's really more of an educational issue. Do you have anything else that you would add to that?
I mean, as to that, not really. The only thing I was going to say is the Jade Health thing. What really stuck out to me is the fact that they want people to give them nuggets of information. I don't know what Afghani civilians would give U.S. troops nuggets of information. It just doesn't translate with me. But back to the hedge fund thing, the only reason why I was calling it a hedge fund is because I see all these investors like Soros investing money into, stir up riots. God knows who investing money to make this trade agreement happen. It seems to me just like a hedge fund, and like every hedge fund, there's a hedge fund operator. And there's probably not just one operating these strings. I mean, I don't know. It was just.
Well, yeah, quite frankly, they are there, and it is really the market manipulation. Of course, it's not just making money if it goes down, like protecting themselves against a loss and making money if it goes down. They can make money if it goes up because they can control which direction it's going to go, and that's the key thing to understand about these people. And we need to back that kind of concentration. You want to know why you're getting a 1% of a 1% of a 1% with all the money? Go back and look at these trade agreements. That's really what is setting this up. Let's go to Richard in Arizona. Richard, you said you wanted to talk about vaccines. Thank you, Stefan. Let's go to Richard.
Hi, David. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're on. Go ahead.
Okay. I've been a really strong supporter of InfoWars for 20 years or so. And I have to correct you on something, and I hope that you will pass it on to Alex also.
Okay, sure.
Once in a while, InfoWars is inadvertently giving out some information that's not correct. And in this case, it's about vaccines. And this is something I know a lot about. And when Jenner started it out, there were no adjuvants being put in the vaccine. And if you look at the history, not from a government source, but from a real source, and I have some of those, you find that the vaccines were starting and spreading epidemics in the beginning, and they killed a lot of people, and there were no adjuvants. Mm-hmm. So this idea that the theory is unquestionable and that clean vaccines would be great is seriously flawed, and it's not true. And then when you look at the history of the next several hundred years through Europe, vaccines were banned many times before adjuvants even started, and the reason they were banned is because they killed people. And the fact that these little things in the bloodstream, which they arbitrarily call antibodies, show up when the body tries to defend itself against this kind of assault, which is not how it gets immunity in nature, not what it's programmed for. They assume that means there's immunity, but we know people are getting these diseases, including measles and everything else, with lots of antibodies, and they get them right after they get the shot. And they also have great immunity in many people that have no antibodies. So that theory is seriously questionable. And when you look at what Pasteur originally said with his germ theory of disease, he actually was not the originator of it. He stole it from somebody named Beauchamp. And both of them recanted that disease before they died when it was too late and it was taking off as an industry. And they said, basically, in short terms, the germs are nothing, the terrain is everything. In other words, the germs are attracted to where there's degeneration going on. And they may have toxic byproducts, but they weren't the original cause. So the whole theory of it and the idea that if it was clean, it would be legitimate is completely bogus, and nobody is willing to say that publicly.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I haven't researched that as thoroughly as you have to say that I wouldn't go with any active immunity. I will say this, that's going to be a much, much harder sell to get people to understand that than to get them to understand that dangerous things are being added to the vaccines that in and of themselves can cause problems. People can understand that. They can understand harmful additives to their food. That's why they buy organic. That's why organic is surging in the marketplace. They can understand that preservatives are dangerous. They can understand that injecting people with aluminum is dangerous. So it's easier, I think, to get people to understand that. It's also, I think, easier to focus on the fact that we need to have decisions. We need to be the ones who make decisions about our life, especially about what we have in terms of medical treatment, that if we don't have that capability, we truly are in a dangerous slave situation. So that's what I've tried to focus on. I know there are people who have a lot of issues with vaccines per se, and I don't dispute that. I haven't researched that as much as you have. I would just say that we need to focus on the idea that you don't force people to get any kind of medical treatment. It's one of the reasons why I oppose fluoride. How can you force medicate people in the water supply? How could you ever justify that? First of all, you can't even control the dosage when you dump it into the water supply. But who gives you the right, government, to force medical treatment on people to say that we have determined that this is for your own good? We should have had this discussion from that perspective with fluoride, I think, a long time ago, to say that you're not going to force medical treatment on me. And now what we see is that this kind of leverage is being used